Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Doppler'S Gear Garage. Have we got a show for you? We're doing something a little bit different today. Back there. Got a pair of amplifiers I've got set up here because we're going to get a chance to continue our conversation from last week about kind of the unique difference between 6L6s, 6V6s, and 6L6s, and the subtleties thereof. We've also got something really cool for those of you that are into crazy gear. We got the that's not the 4-cable method. Hang on a second. That's the graphic for the show. But if I go over here, that is our diagram for the 4-cable method that we're going to be walking through. And of course, we're always here to answer your questions in kind of real time because that's what we like to do. Getting back to the home screen here. In case we haven't met, my name is Doug. Today is a little bit run and gun because I wanted to get a couple of things up and running here. This little amp setup, I kind of got a hair up my backside to get that going. And, really one of the things that we're going to increasingly do in Doppler'S Gear Garage is, wait a second, talk more about gear. I had a chance to see 2 shows back-to-back nights. Last night I got a chance to see Chris Buck and his amazing band Cardinal Black. And the night before I saw Jules Leia. I don't know how to pronounce his last name properly, but he's a great slide player. And my dear friend Saxon Weiss was basically the guest artist with them, and 2 really great shows back to back. And part of this whole little thing here in the back here stemmed from the conversation I had with Saxon, and also when I went to the show last night with my dear friend Mason Marangella of Vertex Effects, and this whole crew of us that get together in the Bay Area, and we're always talking about gear and setups and whatnot. And so increasingly, I'm kind of inspired to talk about gear and always answer questions. We will, of course, be going over some theory stuff because that's part of the mission of what we do. So let me again say, Chris, good morning. Come on, we can do that. There we go. Come on. Let's bring you into the stream. Why are you not coming into the stream? Come on. Well, okay. My comments are not behaving. There we go. Chris Alexander, good morning. David, good morning to you, my friend. Come on. Why? What's up? Comments are misbehaving this morning, but it's just going to be that kind of a day, and I'm fine with that. All right, David, hello. Brenton, hello. Griffin, hello. Braden, what's going on? Okay, so... All right, Braden, so you know what? Let's just jump right into this old 4-cable method thing before we kind of get into this 6L6, 6V6 thing. So first of all, let's get back over to Photoshop here because that's what we're going to do. So first of all, I did not get a chance to build this rig yet. However, to my left is basically going to probably be one of the templates for that. And if I were to hold this unit up without dropping it, the various orify on the back allow you to do a 4-cable method with this amplifier, which we talked about last week, which, by the way, is loaded with a pair of EL84s. But this is one of my Badlanders. It's a Badlander 25. And so the thing about all of this is the 4-cable method, first of all, can be a little confusing because of kind of what's going on. So in the upper left-hand corner of this image right here, right about there. Actually, let me just, let me not do it like that. Come on, undo. All right, if we were to draw a square and we were to just not have a fill and we were to just have a... There we go, come on. All right, okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, great. And we were to do, get this guy out of the way. We were to do something like this. That's not what I don't want to fill. Get rid of the fill. Hello, there we go. And we just want the outline and we want a bigger pixel. Doug is learning on the fly here, so bear with me. So that right there is the input on the GT6. So that's where your guitar would go, right? We're going to get rid of that for just a minute, but that's basically cable number 1. All right, so the deal is cable number 2 goes from the send on the effects loop of the GT6 to the input of your amplifier. Cable number 3 goes from the preamp out of your amplifier back to the return on the loop, the internal loop of the GT6. And finally, oh, that's not what I want. Finally, there we go. The main output of the GT6 goes into the power amp in of your amplifier. So let's see if I can do this one more time. There we go. So we're going to say cable 1, get rid of that. There we go. Cable 1 goes into the input. Cable 2 goes from the loop on your modeling device into the input on your amp. Cable number 3 goes from the preamp out of the effects loop of your amplifier to the return of the loop on your modeling device. And the main output of your device goes into the power amp return. Why did my thing disappear? Oh, there we go. It goes into the power amp return of the amplifier. And that methodology allows you to do something that's really, really cool. Basically, the strategy is this. There's certain types of devices, like this, that you would want to run into the front end of your amplifier. Generally speaking, you don't want to be running your drive pedals in the loop. Not that you couldn't try it, but generally speaking, first of all, there's a couple of reasons. Many times, the effects loop is running at line level as opposed to instrument level, and you can do what I call brown out a box. It's not going to blow it up, but the input is too hot, and you'll notice it just kind of overloads the signal. So the thing is that basically all your traditional kind of drive style stomps, you want to run them into the front end of your amplifier. And I'm going to use this amplifier as an example. Let's see if I can do this without breaking anything. There we go. All right, so the deal is there's all sorts of things that traditionally you just want to run into the front end. So let's just say I had this guy set up. Wait for it. Just set up nice and spanky clean. I would want to run my drive pedals into the front end of that before the preamp section. Then in turn, if you want to add something like a delay, let's see, I don't think I've got that instantiated here. Yeah, I do. I should be seeing input there. Well, in any case, I'm not monitoring this in a way that I'm going to be able to tell. So in any case, like I said, today's a little bit of an experiment, was literally kind of plugging things up until the last wee moments. The deal is, if you're going to run delays and reverbs, you want them after all the preamp stuff, but before the power amp section of said amplifier. So that basically is going to be, there we go, come on, you can do this. There we go. So your effects loop on this amp is right here, the send and return. So basically, like we saw with the diagram there, that's where you kind of run the loop of said modeling device and interconnect it with the loop of said amplifier. Now, one of the things that's going to happen coming up sooner than later, I've already started a spreadsheet. That was one of the things I was doing this morning on today's Tone Quest, is that in talking with Saxon Weiss, by the way, if you haven't heard of Saxon, he is the 13-year-old wonder kid, and he is amazing. If you haven't heard of him, I can assure you, you will. He's a guitar legend in the making, straight up. And at 13, he's shockingly amazing. Like, let me put it to you this way. He did a great job with Jules. He could have easily walked up with Chris Buck and held his own. 13. And when I say held his own, I don't mean kind of like, hey, he's a 13-year-old kid, you know, let him play a little bit. I mean held his own with Chris Buck. And Jules Leia, I think it's the way you pronounce it. In any case, Leahy, there we go. In any case, the point being is the conversation we had after the show was about, well, how do you take an amp that, like these guys, that doesn't have an effects loop? And there are a number of devices that enable you to do that. And I think I see my Sir box that I was talking with my buddy Mason. I am jumping out of frame already. I love this. Come on, where's my Sir box? There we go. Well, I see the box for my Sir box. I can't guarantee that it's actually in there. It appears to be in there. There we go. So here's the deal. Mason Marangella authorized. So this guy allows you to take a tap off the speaker out You got attenuation. You've got what I'm going to presume is a ground lift and polarity phase. And so it just allows you to basically take the signal coming out of the amplifier on its way to the speaker or speaker cabinet, and in turn take a tap there, and then you can run effects off of that. It's essentially like the 4-cable method, but in a grander scale. So one of the rigs I'm going to build is around an amp that doesn't have an effects loop, and in turn coming out of that in mono. And one of the things that we talked about was if you're going to do kind of a dry wet rig, that it makes the most sense, if possible, to stack the cabinets one on top of the other. The reason being, if you move off axis to one side or the other, the sound is going to be consistent between your dry and your wet. The other thing that we talked about doing was doing a wet, dry, wet. So you come out of this guy, you run into something like this, you're coming out of a, just if we were using that, or any one of those cute little boogies back there, including my new boogie of the week, right? Come on, I can do this. There we go. That's my new amp right there. Basically, you can come out of this guy and run into a mono effect for a mono effect, or you can run into something like this where you've now split it stereo. And basically what I would do there then would be put the main amp in the center and run something like a 112 cabinet or a 212 cabinet on either side that are just running the wet effects. But the idea is just enough to kind of tickle that, not so much that it's crazy. And generally speaking, if you're going to use a dotted eighth and a quarter note on one side and the other, one of the things you can do on a device like this is with the pan controls on the delays, you can bring them in a little bit closer to center. Why does that matter? Because if you're at one side of the stage or the other, or say your rig gets mic'd in stereo, the main amp ideally sitting in the center, especially if you're an instrumental player, and then the effects one's panned hard left and hard right. If you're on one side of the room or the other, by bringing the delays in closer to center, you're going to kind of get a blend of both of them no matter where you are in the room. The reverb, I think you're fine leaving it hard left and hard right. Now, let me get my guitar back here, and let me get back down into the chat here and see any comments or questions. And by the way, Vinny Angelo, good morning to you. Good morning to you. How are you, my friend? Great to see you. Hello, hello, hello. Mike Rand, good morning, good morning. Nick, hello, great to see you again. How have you been, my friend? Long time no see. Peter Cruz, hey! Thank you for cruising by. So Nick and Peter were both at the John Petrucci camp that I was at. Is it really 3 weeks ago? Holy cow. Okay, does cable length matter on the 4-cable setup? That is a brilliant question. And Chris, first of all, besides being extremely fond of you, which I think everybody here knows of the depth of my love and affection for you, you always ask great questions. Absolutely. And so, you know, last week I made the mention of America's Test Kitchen. Melissa, my wife, is first of all an amazing homemaker. I call her domestically sophisticated because pretty much anything, whether it's sewing or kind of taking care of the clean version of wife stuff. Let's leave it there. Keep it clean. She's just awesome, right? And so the thing is that America's Test Kitchen, she's got these books, and they try different things because cooking is science, and what we're doing is science. So to answer your question, Chris, cable length absolutely matters. And so one of the experiments that I'm going to be doing, because I realized the short version is this. Went to this show last night. My hands are just ever so slightly dry. And I watched Mason Marangella and Chris Buck meet each other, what I believe is for the first time. And Chris's comment was, blah, 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 you know, your videos, blah, blah, blah. And of course, pretty much everybody who knows Chris Buck, besides those that have seen him on this tour with Cardinal Black, know him from the internet. And I've kind of like way back when, I had the privilege of being kind of one of the first people in that space shooting with fancy pants cameras. And then I kind of moved on and started doing other things. And it's been an area in my career that I've dabbled back with, but have ignored to a detriment. So generally, and this is my advice to you, whatever you do, if you can, do it with a strategy or just do it for the fun of it. Some blend of the two is ideal. So the thing is, I am madly passionate about gear, and on the car ride home, I was like, I am surrounded, what you can't see, there's 500 pedals over there, and I kid you not, there's 2412 cabinets, and there's all this gear. And one of the things that's really unique about my mission and yours, and thank you so much for asking. Hold on a second. Who was that? That was Braden who asked me about. There's Mason. Good time last night on a text, but asked me about the 4-cable method. And it really kind of got the wheels turning. It's like, how can I better serve this community? And how can we have even more fun in the garage? All right. So the deal is, let me just keep going down the list here. So, greetings. Poo Ninja, good morning. 4-cable, wet, dry, wet for life. Clarity and craziness all at once. I feel you. Eric, hello. Good to see you, my friend. Brett, hello. Okay, almost sound like H&K Redbox. Cool. Braden, I was planning to grab a 15 to 20-foot 4-cable snake and swap on the ends for the XLR ends for TRS. The extra cable will make amp channel switching any potential issues you might see with this plan. All right, let me jump back into, first of all, let me do all the salutations, and then I'm going to jump into this. Shredword, all right, hang on. There's more questions here, so let me just first of all say hello, Shredword. Melissa Doppler, hello there. Eric, Stevie Ray Vaughan, good morning. Okay. There you go. That was well timed. Okay, so here's the thing. One of the experiments that I'm going to do is going to be, and I think I saw Pete Thorne do something like this, but it's definitively, and the way you can test any of these things on your own would be to get, and I don't think it's on my desktop, is to use a looper. And the value of using a looper is it allows you to definitively have one audio pass that it's set with same volume, same everything that you would do, and you just loop it, and then you switch back between whatever sources you're A, B, or ABC-ing between. And the end result is allows you to make definitive decisions. One of the other things that you can do, if you're particularly crafty, and you don't have to A-B to do this, is you can set up, like I have here, 2 different microphones on said 2 different amplifiers. There we go. Move out of the way, Doug. Oh, there we go. And I did not go to mad microphone, mad placement, madness, madly. But the short version is if you got a speaker and you got the dust cap, generally you want to be aiming for the edge of that dust cap, somewhere between 1 inch or 2 inches away, depending on what you're looking for. One of the great things about getting 1 inch or closer is you get what's called proximity effect, and that's the buildup of the bass, and it can make a little amp like, let's see if I can go to the right direction. There we go. A little amp like that guy sound bigger in a good way. And so one of the things when we get to the kind of the tube section of all of this, where we're comparing the 6L6 and the 6V6, which is the conversation we had last time, and I thought, first of all, there are boogie amps here that have 6L6s and 6V6s that are, or there's a Gibson amp that's actually off frame that's 6V6s and various ones. But because these are both in Fender flavor, and because in many ways, honestly, Fender was the archetype from which a lot of the boogie stuff was designed. I really thought of you, and I thought of these 2 amps, and I thought of Sax, and I was like, because Saxon was playing through a Princeton, which is used to be one of his go-to amps. Now he plays through an Alessandro. But the idea of kind of leveling the playing field so you test these things as you go back and forth between us. Getting back to the cable length, the longer the cable, the more it's you're going to lose not only high end, but you're going to lose some of your touch dynamics. And if, for example, and this is a really important thing, so here's the volume. Actually, I'm going to switch over to the little guy. So I bring the volume control down. And it just gives you the ability to kind of so I'm going to try and do that in a kind of a chordy kind of way. all that touch dynamic stuff by writing the volume control is where a smaller amp in particular, there's less headroom. It's going to sound a little bit smaller, but bringing that mic a little bit closer can make it sound a little bit bigger. So those touch dynamics are one of the things, and that top end where, especially when I'm all the way up, losing that is losing one of the primary colors that you want to be painting with, and it's a big deal. So I hope that kind of answered that question. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to test different cable lengths, and generally speaking, over 18 feet is about where you really begin to notice. Now, that said, down at my feet, and gosh, I hope I don't regret doing this, I have this Macy Boogie switch track. So that is an AB box, and it also is a buffered AB box. So the idea is that the folks at Boogie very wisely know if you're going to use an AB box, it's probably going to be down at your feet, and your amp's going to be at the back line. So a buffer enables you to counteract the capacitance and the loss of those beautiful frequencies on a longer run of cable. However, Chris, in a long-winded answer that I didn't really get a chance to definitively show an AB on, note to self. If I didn't mention this, one of the other places you could do this, I started to, is you can actually record two amps at the same time, one with a short cable or one with a long cable, two identical amps if you can, and then just look at the waves and see if you can see and hear a difference, right? So that way it's one pass instead of using a looper. All that to say, collectively, by the time you start adding a whole bunch of cable, it's not the ideal thing to do, but buffers can help a great deal. So that is an important thing. The thing about an AB box is that there are a couple of things that you want to have. You know, generally speaking, this Boogie AB box is my go-to. It's a switch track. It gives you the ability to run one or the other, and it also has MIDI compliance, which means I can use it in the framework of a larger rig, which is outside of the scope of what we're going to talk about today. All right. So let me, okay. So Braden, with your question, so I have a pair of snakes that I bought off of Craigslist that have various different types of cables. And I'm going to need to do a little bit of research to thoroughly answer your question. But I believe with a fair amount of accuracy, if you open up a microphone cable and you open up an instrument cable is just going to have a single lead with a braided shield. Generally speaking, if I recall correctly, microphone cables do not have the braided shield because they have a different methodology of passing the signal. Generally speaking, unless you're going to use something like a radial, do I have one down here? Or hang on, heading for the gear rack. I'll be back in a second. I'm not supposed to do this, but love doing this. Where is Boogie, 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 Boogie? Come on, where are you, baby? Boogie makes something very close to what the radial boxes that I used to use. I'm in the Boogie section. There we go. Coming at you. Hang on a second. Almost there. Here we go. So Boogie makes a pair of boxes very similar to the radial SGX and SGI, I think is what they're called. And basically, or it's the SGI. And what these are boxes that allow you to basically run out of your guitar. And these are brand new. This is called the ClearLink. And basically what you do is you come out of your guitar or your pedal board into one of these guys, and then you can use an XLR cable, and then you basically use a pair of these boxes. Now, where this is particularly helpful is, let's say, for example, you have upstairs, I've got what I call a gear closet. It's an amp closet, and I can run signal using an XLR cable on a run like this. So in that particular instance, that's a great time to use XLR in that, but you're going to want to use a box, or I should say, a send and receive box that allow you to do that. And I can see another gear demo coming on, so that's great. And And one of the other things that I did back in the day, and it should still be working, is I actually ran an HDMI cable from this room to there, so I should be able to actually be able to do some live sound from the amp closet, and you'll be able to see and hear these guys in action. When I originally built that, I was using the Radial SGI boxes that just like this have a send and receive, but basically everything that could be boogie in my rig these days pretty much is. All right. So that said, the ability so let me reread your question here. Let me make sure I've got it. So for 15 to 20 foot cable, 4-channel snake, and swap the XLR ends for TRS. The extra cable would mean the amp channel switching any potential. Okay, sorry. Read more into your question than it was there. So adding more to your question than it was there, one of the other things you could do, in addition to using the TRS for switching, which is a great idea. So basically your average microphone cable has 3 cables, and a TRS cable is a tip ring and a sleeve, which basically 3.3 leads-ish. There's a level of my knowledge that cables bumps up right against. But the deal is, it would be really great if maybe you actually got a few more leads such that you could use something like this, and you could also use it for your instrument run, if you were so inclined. So say, for example, you wanted to have that snake down at your pedal board and just have that snake going back to the amplifier to control channel switching. And in turn be able to use one of these boxes to run into the front of the amp, and in turn use another one of these boxes to run maybe some, if you wanted to run all your time-based effects, or maybe you were using something like this and you wanted to use the 4-cable method. That's what you can do, and that's kind of why I bought 2 snakes. One that's, I think, a 20-foot snake, and the other is a 50-foot snake, that in combination with buffers and for a large stage allow you to counteract the capacitance that you're going to get with a longer cable. I will do a little bit of research and be able to better articulate the difference between a traditional TS cable, tip sleeve, your average guitar cable, tip ring sleeve, which is your average kind of stereo guitar cable, if you will, or stereo cable 1/4 inch, and then the actual microphone cable. And one of the things that mic cables do is they use with the way that a microphone and a PA are set up to work is they, like a hum canceling pickup, they use something that I can't explain articulately yet, but they use differing polarities to look for differences along that cable. Let's see if I can kind of get close to it. So a traditional guitar cable has a braided shield to kind of keep the guitar. Let's see if I can do this. Let's see what happens. There we go. Hang on a second. Bridge pickup will probably be better. There you go. So that's electrical magnet EMF, electromagnetic interference, or whatever it is. But basically what it is that there's all this stuff out there floating around in the air, and things like your phone. If you ever put your phone on top of your amp and you hear this very strange noise, sometimes it's clicking and sometimes it's other bizarre noise. That stuff's just out there. So the idea is the braided shield around the instrument cable keeps it kind of safe from some of that electromagnetic interference that's floating around there. So the microphone cables use a slightly different process. Is that they're basically, in addition to what I believe is kind of the main lead carrying the signal, they have 2 other quote-unquote leads or cables that they're running in opposite directions, what they're looking, opposite polarity, and basically what they're doing is they're listening for noise, and the way they reject the noise is that they're listening for the signal of things that they now I'm screwing it up. Basically what they do is, because they're running an opposite polarity, any additional noise that gets introduced to your signal run, they cancel out. That was really lame, but there you have it. I will be able to better explain that when I can better explain it. All right. Now, so great question. What is my experience with EMG pickups? I run a 60 or 57 in the bridge. Most of my guitars much better than the standard 81-85 combo. Also love supporting a local company. All right, first of all, I am generally, especially since I'm a quote unquote Gibson artist, and I've of course replaced all these pickups with DiMarzios. I am okay. EMG 60 or 57. So let me see first of all, and EMG 60. Because the EMG, there we go. All right, ceramic humbucker active. Okay, right. So I just wanted to double check. So the majority of EMG's pickups are active, which for guys like Steve Lukather, who used EMG for a long time now, plays DiMarzio. But I don't know, guys like Metallica, whose tone is not sucking. There is, or David Gilmour, another tonesmith. I think there are people who have a lot of love for them. I don't have a huge amount of experience in the EMG world, other than to say there is a guitar. One of the Guitar Hero guitars that I used was, back in the day, I did Guitar Hero, the Encore Roxy 80, and one of the 80s, and one of the tracks was 17 by Winger. And so I used an 540R, which was relatively close to the guitar that Reb Beach was playing at the time, loaded with EMGs. And so I reached out to my artist relations guy who was at Ibanez at the time, who's now my artist relations guy at Line 6. And I, just asked him a few questions, and without being able to spill the beans because we were under NDA at the time, couldn't talk about the track or the artist, but we could kind of allude to enough that he could fill me in on which EMGs he was using. It was an essential part of nailing Reb's tone, or at least attempting to nail Reb's tone. And the other thing is that there is an Ibanez. It's a white Ibanez. It looks like a Les Paul. That is kind of my Les Paul with EMG things. And there is an Epiphone here that's actually a really good sounding Epiphone that I'm going to drop probably the 81-85 combination in, just because I need that as a demo guitar. So that is to say, long-winded answer, I think they're great. And I think especially if you're playing heavy music, they're really great. I have not had a chance to use, because, since they kind of made their claim to fame on active pickups, they've also, as I understand, kind of make, non-active pickups that you don't need a battery to use. So ironically, this guitar has got a battery compartment because it's got a Sustainiac on it. So I live with batteries, so and my experience with the EMGs, I think they sound great. I prefer kind of the bias that I have towards using more traditional pickups, simply because that's kind of been my jam, and I think that there's something about a little bit more vintagey about a more traditional pickup. However, as I understand it, EMG doesn't make just active pickups these days. So I hope that answered your question. And the bottom line is, what works for you is what matters. Well, here's the thing, Pooh, and it's a great point, getting back to this whole concept of the wet, dry, wet. There are times when I play in stereo that I'll sum everything to mono, and or I'll dial things in such a way that I know if it does get summed to mono, it's not going to be this wall of sound because you had a bunch of delay and reverb over here and a bunch of delay and reverb over there. When you summed it to mono, it became a whole bunch, right? And the whole thing about a wet, dry, wet rig, especially if you're playing with a smaller band, the thing that the sound man will love is you're giving them the freedom to make your direct signal stand out from your wet effects. And another great option for them is to give them just a wet and a dry, and then they can blend them together front of house. I prefer the wet, dry, wet, but you want to make sure that you're not driving them bonkers. And the other thing is you want to be conscious of where the vocals are sitting in the mix. So there. Griffin, by the way, this is one of the other conversations that's happening here. Basically, as I'm looking at content and things to do, by the way, there was something that I meant to do a little bit earlier that I'm going to do now. We dropped the second single from the re-release of New Instrument. Sorry, not New Instrumental. There we go. Ground Zero yesterday. And let me find the live stream. Hold on a second. Let me mute that. And I'm going to cut and paste this onto the live stream Facebook. There we go. Hello, hello, hello. There we go. So those links are now here. And let's see more. And let's see if it's going to let me pin this comment. Going to let me pin this? No. Okay, in any case, that I just posted that on Facebook. And let me get over to YouTube real quick. And let me just go ahead. So these are the links to the latest single. And if you have a moment, go ahead and click them. It's a really important moment in Doppler world, because honestly, every one of these clicks actually really matters. And it's greatly, greatly appreciated. So let me go to, there we go, thank you. Let me get over to my own live stream, hello. There we go. I think this one is adding it to YouTube if I put it here. So let me take a look at how it does it here. Nope, that added it to Facebook. Okay, great. Better twice than not. Give me just a moment. Let me get this over there on YouTube. YouTube Studio. Hello, hello, hello. And hopefully I'm not echoing here. Good. Okay. That's what we're looking for. Give me just a moment. Almost there. There we go. And God willing, this thing's not about to start pissing away on me. Come on. There we go. They like to start sending echo feeding back. Yep, it's going to do it. There we go. And there it is down. Oh, that did go through. All right, good, good, good. All right, perfect. In any case, if you get a moment, that would be greatly appreciated if you get a chance to click any of those. All right, perfect. Oh, it showed up different times on them, but it's both of them posted. All right. All right. More PAF sound. Okay, that's great to know. Thank you very much. All right, so there we go. Thank you. And if you're looking on a phone, basically what Shredword is saying there is, I also suggest people step outside the box and try their other models that fall in between passive and active tones. Love that. And it's scrolling back up the line. Hang on a second. I got ahead of myself getting down to the bottom there. So let's just take a quick moment and scoot back up the line here so I don't miss anything. All right. Good, 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 good. So getting back to Griffin's comment. So one of the things that I think that I'm inclined to do is also start creating some content around recording. Both that's going to be, and the neat thing is it's going to give us the ability to have videos that I put out around specific building blocks of the process, because Griffin reached out to me this week and had some really great questions around, kind of using a hub. So Griffin, this hub here with it, Mike Dawes. Come on. There we go. With the Mike Dawes lesson thumb drive there. That's kind of my main hub. And there's certain things you want to use for your hub, and there's certain things you don't want to. And that's one of the things, like, there's all these ins and outs. And if you're new to the recording world, kind of what the sample rate is going to be, like setting up a session. If the first time you open up something like Pro Tools or Logic, you're like, holy cow, where do I begin? So Between you and I, it's loosely going to be called Recording for Newbies, and I'm going to try and see if I can't find the same yellow and the same dummies font, but for newbies. And it's specifically walking through people through some of the building blocks of getting your recording stuff together, how to work on double tracking, little things that I love to do because right now I'm working on wrapping up the next singles, which are going to be we're going to re-release the entire new Ground Zero album 3 weeks from now. That's what's going to dump, and then 3 weeks after that, the first single from Swagger is finally going to happen, and then 3 weeks after that, the first single from the vocal album Joyride is going to happen. And so I'm kind of in pre-production replacing tracks, and one of my things that I do is I will always pan whatever guitar I'm tracking and double tracking, I'll pan it to the left. But what I'll do is the first track that I actually record to in playback is panned to the right. So that when I arm the next track, the first track that I recorded, even though I was listening to the left, because I think we kind of have a tendency to think left to right because of how we're taught to read, then as soon as I play back that first track that I was monitoring pan to the right, pan to the left rather, but it's playing back pan to the right, I'm ready to just keep that guitar pan to the left that I'm listening to and matching the sound that's coming out on the right. And it just allows me to kind of keep where the guitar is, but it's a really great way, instead of putting the guitar in the center and trying to double track, it allows you to really better hear that stereo image, and it makes it such you really have the ability to hear how the two guitars are going to sit side by side as opposed to one on top of the other, which is not how you're actually going to mix it. And that's a hack that I probably didn't start doing until the last 2 years, and it saved me a huge amount of heartache in the studio. So Griffin, thanks for that. Okay, good. Buenos dias, mi buen amigo Esteban. Hola. Jim Wagner, what's going on, my man? Don't know if you're still aboard, but great to see you as always. By the way, I think it is absolutely time, holy cow, wait for it, to raise them up. Okay. So do me a favor and let me know where it is you're coming from, what it is that you're potentially drinking. And I am having some, thanks to Griffin Gaines, some community coffee from good old Louisiana. And I'm also got some muscle milk in there for building the guns. Where are you coming from? What are you drinking? All right. So thank you very much, Jew. Really appreciate it. Right back at you. Okay. And hello, brother, to you, my friend. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening. Tracy Holcomb, hello. How you doing? Hello. All right. Hello, Peter. Yes, so the great thing about this type of a setup is this allows you to run a much longer type of a run with the XLR. So generally speaking, the data that I've read is you probably don't want to go longer than 100 feet, and ideally about 50 is about as many as you want to go on an XLR. However, I'd say give or take where that amp room is about 60 or so feet from your kind of, not as the crow flies, but by the time I kind of travel those cables through the ceiling and whatnot. But I've recorded and used audio from up there, and it was when I was in that room and kind of running it through the ceiling, because there's a kind of a second smaller studio set up there. But I can tap into that from down here, and it was wired that way when we set this room up. So that's going to be one of the things that we're going to experiment. So maybe you or whoever is watching has a room or a closet that you can potentially get into the ceiling, run cabling through the ceiling, and run your various points of connection to an amplifier that's sequestered in a closet. Now, one of the other things in the midst of this, Melissa Doppler is messaging me. This can't be good. Play the ad for them. They'll get a kick. All right. Note to self. Thank you, love. So the thing about the unique setup that I am getting ready to employ, and most of these little rigs that you see behind me, is one of the tests that I did in Doppler's test kitchen. was try running direct out of. So many of these amps are equipped with a Mesa Boogie feature called Cab Clone IR, and it is a phenomenal way to basically take your favorite Boogie cabinets and your favorite Boogie amps and use IRs of those cabinets that are loaded basically into the amplifier, and you just basically take an XLR cable and run that into your DAW. And then there are selector switches, 8-way selector switches, or multiple thereof for the different channels for the different amps, and you can choose the best cabinet for the sound or the voice that you're going for. And so the ability to do that is great. However, one of the tests that I ran is I found that the amplifiers behaved differently, and the results were better when you were actually running an actual cabinet at the same time. Because the amplifiers, you might have heard me mention before, is actually seeing the speaker, and there's a relationship that happens, this give and take, where the speaker is, because of the frequency curve of the speaker and the frequencies coming out of the amplifier, the way they talk to each other matters. And in turn, I've got an ISO cabinet from the folks at Mojo Tone. It's actually a 212 ISO cabinet. I've got a pair of speakers. That's one of the things I didn't get to this week. But they are 150 watt Celestians, and they are very, very similar in terms of the frequency response to a Vintage 30 and a Classic Lead 80 and the Mesa Boogie Black Shadow. So the Black Shadow is basically a slightly modified Classic Lead 80. And the Vintage 30 and Classic Lead 80 are not that different in terms of their frequency response. So these speakers are very similar to that. So because they can handle 150 watts, you can crank the heck out of one of them without fear of blowing it. So that's going to be in the ISO cabinet, so I can have the amp running as hot as I want to. So one of the things that we're going to jump into, and I'm going to come back to questions in a minute, about the difference between these two amplifiers here, and this kind of gets back to our conversation last week. If I jump over to, I'm going to stay on the. Now, I did not spend a huge amount of time getting a chance to A/B the mic placement. I just kind of did a quick little test. But that is the Princeton reverb over there. And that's got 6 V6s in it. That's a smaller tube. That amp also has a 10-inch speaker, so it's a smaller production, if you will. Then on the other side, and so the idea is, first of all, that is a pair of 6L6s. So again, the production, the hair out of my eye. There we go. And it also is a pair of 212s. But that particular amplifier, if I can find a pick, is a very special amp because it's got a kind of a in the good sense of the word, a kind of a gumminess, the way the notes are kind of a little sticky. The other thing is because it is has a higher wattage, and it's got a pair of 6L6s. It's got more headroom to it, which means I can dig in a little bit more compared to these guys. I'm going to change the setup on the amp here. Let's bring the top end back a little bit. So the 6L6s and the 212s just give you more. And the whole thing is that if you're playing in a situation, one of the conversations that I had with young Saxon Weiss, somebody wants to get a hold of me. Was about the fact that he's now moved to an Alessandro amp, and I think he's running a 40-watt amplifier because the Princetons, as much as they're a really lovely sounding amplifier, they're not. At a certain point, they don't get louder. They just kind of they get more distorted. I should say more overdriven. We talked about this last time. They're a non-master volume amplifier, so it's just a clean amplifier. And as you kind of get past 4 to 6, especially past 6, they just kind of begin to break up, and you lose the. And because I'm mic'd up, this is not the optimal setup for me to demonstrate the headroom at different settings, which again is a video to be made. Now, here's the thing. There are times you actually want the more intimate. That there are times less is actually more. It just gives you something that's just kind of a. You can bring the volume down. But you can't get the. The intimacy that smaller amp gives you, and so the blend of the two, and this is kind of one of the reasons why I have been on an amp binge, is that each one of these amps does something very unique, and it's like why you pick up a Strat or a Les Paul or a Flying V. This guitar is set up in such a way that in the number 2 pickup selection here, I'm going to be in the bridge. There we go. Number 2 again, sorry. Middle position, not my favorite on this guitar. It doesn't have a tone control in the middle position. That's one of the things we're going to fix. That's the number 4. There's the neck. But the number 4 is designed. You would never know that it's a Flying V, right? little bit kind of almost like a Knopfler. And the top end. Now that's the other thing about a larger amplifier though, so we go all the way down. And I'm on the number 4 pickup selection, kind of like, you know, like on a Strat. One of the things for me that I'm always looking for is basically, you know, there's the concept of instead of 1,000 shades of gray, 1,000 shades of tone, the ability to kind of work with, especially if you're in the bridge, and work with the tone control. So you're like, it's not totally bridge pickup because, well, I mean, it is, but because of the way you're interacting with the amplifier, the volume's all the way up, but I've taken the tone control. And all those gradations in between is where an amplifier that's got a little bit more wattage gives you that headroom, so you can kind of dial in those different levels without necessarily coming down, because with the smaller amp, because it has less dynamic range and less volume, those levels, if you will, are closer to the ground. Where with an amp that's got more wattage and more headroom, you can get there with more overall volume. And with a smaller amp, it only kind of gets so loud, and it just, again, you start to break it up in the power amp section. Okay, let me get okay, Brenton, one of my favorite questions ever. Okay, so where is my handy dandy noise reducer? Thank you. All right, so there are two versions of this. One that's handy. So this is, thank you for that question. First of all, Brenton, always a pleasure. So one of the things that happens when you power, bus power modeling devices or use a deep editor via USB cable is I frequently get a happening in the background. Pretty early on, I figured it was coming through the USB cable, and if I needed to do some recording, I would just kind of save my preset and pull the cable out. But there are some devices like this, and I'm going to have to create. One of the things that's coming very soon is there's going to be an email list that we've loosely termed the Doppler download. And it's going to go out once a week, and there's going to be information about new releases that may be in the works or existing releases that are out there. But most importantly, kind of information about kind of, you know, different demos that are happening and specific talking points. I'm probably going to start using my website a little bit more intelligently than just like, I played there last weekend, you know, being a little bit more of a social media architect instead of just posting. But the idea is devices like this will also kind of probably end up on a spreadsheet that people can find a description and a link to the video and then the ability to buy it. And so the great thing about this, I found it on Amazon. This is the cheap one. It was like 15 or 20 bucks. Brent, when I see you tomorrow, I will have that link for you. But there's also a more expensive one that was closer to $75, and I kept that one just because I wanted to have the ability to demonstrate them. So that's going to be a video forthcoming. But basically, as Sonia explained, you get a ground loop between the computer and the device. So this gets rid of that chirp that could drive somebody absolutely out of their mind. Great question. So there you have it. Ada, what's going on? Epiphones. Been considering purchasing a Les Paul limited edition based on Gibson, but not the custom. But you've been looking at the finishes, and they aren't really glossy like the Gibsons. Are those just lining, or are they really like a matte finish? That's a great question. So if Let me just check something. There you go. All right, so I hope they don't hate me for this, but you know what? Down below here, let's see if it posts through to both of them now. All right, there it goes to Facebook. Oh, I see. That's why it showed up in both places. Okay, sorry, that just went to YouTube, and the reason it showed up in both places before is because I actually posted it there. Okay, so now that is on both threads there. That's going to come through in a second here. So the idea, it's really weird. It's showing up as my YouTube. Did I just post it in the wrong place? Oh, I am moron. Hang on a second. Let's try that again. Here we go. All right, take two. I see what I did. Okay, so I just posted that on Facebook as well. That is the link to the Gibson Garage. I would suggest actually giving them a call and asking about any specific guitars that you're seeing and kind of going, since you're wanting to purchase something, call them. That would be my suggestion, and they should have a good answer for you. That's a great question, by the way. And generally speaking, as you look at them, I would also just suggest going to Sweetwater and looking at all the photos. If it looks like they're non-glossy, or you can reach out to Sweetwater and ask them as well, which would be another great thing. So hang on just a second here. Okay, there we go. There we go. Hang on. Oh, there we go. Hang on just one sec. All right, there we go. Good, 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 good. Sorry, I kind of streamed down the list here. Peter, I purchased the Ground Zero CD at JPGU. Thank you very much. And I signed it, that very cool thing that you printed out. And you saw that was on my social media, as I recall. Can't find it on Apple or Spotify, but are you in the process of re-releasing it now? So Melissa was kind enough to mention, let's see if I can do this without breaking anything, that, there we go. So let's see if I can do this without breaking anything. So the sound is on. All right, so let's reload this. All right, so there's that. It should play through. Hang on a second. So I'm going to share this. Melissa was like, all right, that's not what I want. I want Chrome, and I want that Facebook. No, I don't want that Facebook. It's never a perfect science when you're live streaming. I'll just leave it at that. That should be what we want. And so this is kind of a little something that's fun. Here we go. All right. Oh, all right. That's enough out of you. Shush. In any case, we are in the process of re-releasing. I want to be back over here. Come on, come on, come on. Ecamm Live. There we go. We're in the process of basically releasing the second single. Then we're going to drop the entire album. So they'll be available on both Apple Music and Spotify. Thank you for asking. So it's a really exciting time. Actually, it's really neat. That album came out 30 years ago, and it's really amazing kind of how time flies. In any case, again, thank you for asking. And thank you, Melissa, for answering. Good, good, good. And nice to see the EMG love. And Nick, great to see you again. Hello. 5765 and a couple of guitars and love. Note to self. Thank you, thank you, thank you. 5766, okay? All right. All right, Griffin, you are a gem, by the way. And I take it the recording thing. Yeah, that it should be really, really cool. And again, if I kind of opened up Pro Tools for the first time, I just kind of went, "Holy cow!" And how do I string all this stuff together? Griffin's question, jumping back to that real quick, was about kind of, as you're beginning to think about what you can and can't run off of a hub. So say, for example, you're using something like this, which is basically a dongle. It's called an iLock. You can use this to authorize Pro Tools. So you need to use some sort of authorization. You can do it online, but you have to have an internet connection. If by chance your internet goes down, as in your quote unquote phone line, if you have something like that coming into your house, or your traditional internet goes down, your session, you lose your authorization. So this allows you to be offline and anywhere and use this. So these are valuable to have for that reason. However, if you lose your authorization on there, you lose your iLock, it's kind of a drama. And every so often you have the authorizations on the wrong iLock, and that's a whole other thing. You grab one thinking you've got the other. Different conversation. But the point being is that there's the authorizations, there's plugins, there's all this stuff. Sorry, I started to talk about this guy because this is one of the things you can absolutely run on a hub without issue. You can run your external monitors, that is to say, video monitors, off the hub. But generally speaking, your audio interface, you want to run that directly into the computer. And these are the sorts of things you kind of only find out, because if you think about an audio interface as a peripheral, traditionally when you think about peripherals, you're like, hey, I hook up my peripherals to my hub. And so these are the sorts of things that, like, you can have problems. And they're with guitar lessons. I've got one of my favorite new students, my buddy Steve. We'll just keep it at first names. If I'm in the key of G, that note is a B flat as opposed to an A sharp. And the reason for that, a little music lesson here, is that if we look at the key of C major, C, hold a D, hold a E, half to F, hold a G, hold a A, hold a B, half to C, the largest distance between any adjacent notes is a whole step, and the smallest distance is a half step. So if I'm at a note here and I moved a step and a half, that literally means it's either a step and a half or a half and a step. And either way, there's a middle number, as in 1, 2. This would be the 3 of the major scale, so this would be 1, 2, flat 3. And there's going to be a middle note name, as in G, A, B flat. Or if this is 1, 2, 3, this is, like I said a minute ago, 1, 2, flat 3. And this would be 1, there's the 2. This would be a 1, flat 2, flat 3. So this would be G, A, B, G, A, B flat, G, A flat, B flat. But either way, that's going to be a B flat because it's a minor third, implying that there's some sort of secondy sort of piece of information in between there. That is to say, if we think about this as a scale degree number, that's a 1, and this is a flat 3. Intervallically, or played as a dyad, it's called a minor third. Flat 3, minor third. All right. That is our theory moment for the day. I find it very hard. I find it very hard to find the right gear to make a rig these days. There's so much stuff out there. It's hard to find what is right within the budget to cover the needs. Okay, that moment of pensive thought. First of all, it's a great point. One of the things that I've been toying around with as I recall, I have a Duke of Tone, I think, that's a mini pedal that Dunlop put out, or MXR. And one of the things that I've been kind of thinking about is, generally speaking, the mini pedals are a little bit less expensive and they take up less real estate on your board. But you kind of got me thinking about, like, well, what would be a really great, small, affordable, great board? One of the other conversations I had with my, he hates when I call him this, my handler at Mesa Boogie, Gibson, was about kind of the right backline amp to start using for some of these pedal demos that I'm going to be doing the framework of the rig. And the amp that we came up with is going to be the Lone Star. And you've probably heard of Andy Timmons. That's kind of been an integral part of his rig. So Andy is, kind of famous for using amps and pedals, right? So the point being is that I'm going to use that as the platform. But note to self, I am going to go ahead, and I've got a little baby board. Actually, it's what I used for this little pedal train nano. That's perfect for that. And I'm going to take it a step further. Where is gone into hiding? Okay, a great little depending. So what I'm trying to decide, and I'm not sure yet, is in the framework of some of these little rig videos, potentially doing a couple of different variations. So, for example, in the rig I'm actually affectionately calling the Weiss guy, named after Saxon Weiss, the idea is you got an amp that doesn't have an effects loop. You're taking a tap off the speaker out, and in turn, you're then kind of running that to some sort of power amp, mono or stereo, and then a mono cabinet, or two cabinets, or a stereo cabinet. And the point being is that it seems to make a lot of sense to put the dry amp and the mono cabinet, and the dry amp and the stereo cabinet, or the dry amp and the left and right cabinets in the same video as examples of on variations on a theme. So with taking that same course, doing the same thing with one of the little Tonex boxes, and just using that as your amplifier, and then using other small little stomps, excuse me, into the front end of the Tonex amplifier, which is a great direct solution. But in turn, not using the Tonex amp, Tonex as your the Tonex One as your little virtual amplifier, but actually using an actual amplifier and kind of giving that as a secondary example. But the idea is putting together an affordable board with great little components. There would probably be the little Dunlop mini wah on there. And the idea of just going, hey, this is a great collection of devices that they're not super expensive. You could probably put together most of that board for the price you'd pay for a Strymon piece of gear or one of the UAFX, more expensive offerings. And that would be the goal. So, Brett, thank you for the inspiration there. I love that. 60 is usually in the neck position, but I've had great experience putting it in a bridge. There we go. Come on. Usually really pushes the mids and tames the highs. Tell me about it. There we go. Still recording the new PC before I can do much. Also, hang on just a second. Yeah, there we go. Hold on. There we go. Oh, that's right. It came to the other email. That's right. So, Braden, I did get a chance to listen to just a little bit of the track, but this morning was, first of all, thank you for sending that through. Sounded great. Some nice, spanky clean guitars. But I did not have a chance to just sit there and listen to it all the way to the end because I was doing all of this business. But what I heard so far sounded great. Explain to me the name, because there was a guy with a guitar, and I didn't get a chance to Facebook stalk you to see all of that. So, in any case, by the way, I can see that there's some people in here, maybe some new people that I haven't met. My name is Doug. We talk about gear, and we also talk about guitars in theory. If you've got questions, we're architecting kind of a bunch of YouTube content that is going to feed what we talk about here on the show, and what we're talking about on the show is going to feed that. So if you've got questions or comments about any of that, please leave them down below. All right. What DAW do I use? So I am a universal audio guy. However, one of the other things that's happening here is that I have the small Apollo interfaces. I've got the large Apollo 8. And then also there is one of the less expensive UA interfaces, as well as a 4-input Apollo Twin or Apollo Quad, or whatever it's called. No, it's a 4-input Apollo. Those are on loan from the folks at UA, and then also the good folks at Focusrite have sent a couple of things. So one of the other things that I'm going to do is I'm going to probably have to decide whether I'm going to separate the UA ones from the Focusrite stuff, because generally speaking, if there's any hope of the UA people sharing it, they're not going to do with the Focusrite stuff in there, and vice versa. all that is to say is I'm going to go through a couple of my favorite interfaces that I suggest using that and why I like them. And so, but I'm a UA guy. I really love the UA plugins. Part of my vibe, there's a larger pedal board over there that features the UA effects. There is the Starlight, which is their delay, or I should say multiple delays, their delay platform, and then their reverb. I forget the name of the reverb pedal. It's the gold. There we go. And basically, it's all my favorite plugins that I use inside the DAW on a pedal board. So it creates this beautiful, what I call a round trip solution. So generally speaking, when I'm going into the computer, I'm not using delays and reverbs. The singular exception that I might make of that, if I'm playing through some amp like... That is that beautiful 60s Pro reverb. And the one that's in just really special, and that you just can't recreate in the box. So great question. Hello, Steve. Miss you, my friend. There we go. Come on. El Aguacate, Costa Rica Spring. Muy bien. Bottled water. Y'all chilling in Ohio. Mike ran North Colorado drinking a latte. Latte on, my man. Houston, Texas, just water, but working up to my neck in, oh my word, flu shots. Joan, I've tried the 50, okay, good. I tried them too dark and overwhelming, but I like a retroactive Super 77. Very interesting. You know, I hope my friends at DiMarzio don't hate me, but my buddy Gary Brower is really good friends with the EMG guys. And as I recall, he's got a healthy selection of EMG pickups. I think I hear a EMG, not a shootout, because shootouts always imply somebody gets killed, but a tone out. So that sounds cool. There we go. Baltimore water. Come on. Oh, wait 1 second. There we go. All right. Wally, what's going on, my man? Great to see you. Hello. Love that photo, by the way. Yes. We have a phone call coming up this week. Brenton, have you been doing Chris's courses too? Melissa, it's okay to promote yourself. Doug says it's Chris and bundle yourself with everything. Fans can't buy an offer if it's not offered. That's right. All right. I love it when you guys start chatting here. There we go. Les Paul. Oh, you're going all three flavors. Love that. Okay, good. All right, you guys are chatting. I'm going to let you hang with that. Let me scroll down here a little bit further. I'm going to get... Chris, where is the video with the ad? Hang on a second. I am going to share Falcon, self-portrait. There we go. Hang on a second. Size. There we go. Hang on a second. There we go. DD self-portrait. Right. Give me a moment. There we go. That should be it. Oh, okay. I can share this. Copy Dropbox link. All right. I'm going to share this. Not there. All right. You. There we go. All right. Hey, Mark, good morning, my man. Carlos, hey. What's shaking? Okay, there it is on Facebook. And there it is on YouTube. So that is the link to the Dropbox file for said video. So thanks for asking, my friend. All yours. Okay. Awesome, awesome. Nandini, welcome back. Thank you. I hope the move has gone well. Tell me about the guitar. So one of the other things that happens, and it's actually, you know, the great thing is all my gear friends that I affectionately, in the midst of album world, in the Doppler household, we refer to as family. You know, I'm always a little hesitant around fans, but family has enough of like, this is family, that people who support what we do, it matters and it means a lot. So we affectionately use that word family for the various members of the Doppler gang. In any case, so Nandini is definitely one of the family members. And so, oh, there we go, the Doppler gang family. So she reached out because she's just moved, and she and Nathan, and she was like, I'm a little worried about packing my gear. What do we do? So we kind of walked through some of the different options. And, you know, the short version is that generally, even if you're just kind of not worrying about moving, but just in general, you don't want a guitar case where the end of the neck is touching the guitar case itself. You want a case where the body is secured in such a way that if you know, it moves in the case, the end of the neck is never going to come in contact with the case. And generally speaking, if it's a decent case, your instrument's going to be fine. I fly with my guitars, and I check them every time because I actually don't like the hassle, like bringing it on the plane and kind of having to watch it as you're kind of boarding, and just like, it's just kind of a drama. And honestly, they're heavy to carry through the airport. So the other thing is that quite often I'll bring this guy. Actually, I haven't flown with this guy yet, but the other amp that I mistakenly didn't know what the power amp tubes in it, which are EL84s, is my Mark 525. Great little amp to just put in. I actually put it in my main bag when I went to the 2 guitar camps, but I frequently have put it in my little carry-on for the overhead, and it's great. So I just love that. Shredding Finn, what's going on? In any case, by the way, Nandini, glad to hear that you're kind of getting settled. Awesome. And Dr. Nandini in process. Awesome. All right, Shredding Finn. Good afternoon. What's under the FM3? Thank you. See if I can do this without breaking anything. So that is my Badlander 25. And so we were talking about was it Braden? I think it was Braden's. Hang on, let me double check. I think it was Braden that asked about the 4-cable method. It was. So we basically went through a diagram of that, and this is probably as I do a 4-cable method video, I'm going to use this as one of my examples because it's perfect for that. And what's neat is, you know, as we talked about before. A moment ago, sometimes these videos, there's kind of the main part, and then there's kind of some of the addendum. And so one of the challenges with this particular setup here is this guy does not have the ability to send channel switching information to this guy via a 1/4-inch jack. And the 1/4-inch channel switching jack is on the front of this guy. And that's just, as I recall, is just a standard TS jack. So there are some devices out there that allow you to take MIDI and translate that into basically something that, from basically a MIDI jack into a 1/4-inch jack. And so I'm probably going to pick one of those up and incorporate that into my 4-cable method video. Because one of the things people are going to want to know is like, hey, and my buddy Mike Mong, who I had a conversation with yesterday because he's in the process of trying to figure out his 4-cable method rig, and that's specifically why I ended up with that Fender Hot Rod Deluxe and the GT6. That's literally his rig. So as we were on the phone, I was like, I grabbed those 2 images off the internet and created a cruder version of that diagram. But the point being is that, it's confusing enough. And it was so funny as I was explaining to him, I was like, go right. It can be confusing, especially if you're new to it. So. Right. I think Fishman does make that, Nick. Thank you for that clarification. Awesome. And Nandini, I am so glad that you made it here today. All right. Yeah, but such is life, right? Okay. I hope that answered that question. Carlos Hernandez, video, my friend. The new Boss PX1 looks good for many pedals mixed with Tonex. So one of the things that I heard, I got an email from a buddy of mine whose name I will not reveal. I heard that the Boss has a new device, but if you want to add to it, you pay for a virtual download. So you might want to double check that. Apparently there was some lack of love and a little bit of flaming on the internet. I didn't get a chance to check that out. Mark Turvey, have a great show, my friend. Thank you. Cheap as well. Okay, here we go. All right, there we go. Yes, I play in a band. Okay, so it's some people have a stage name. So I was like, okay, is that you or is in any case? Okay, cool. What I heard sounded great, really well recorded. The guitar sounded great. I did not get a chance to listen all the way through. Last night I went to bed late, and this morning I got up early. All right, the guitars made it good here. There are still a couple more we got to ship, but we definitely know how the drill now. Thanks to you. No, thank you. These are the things of why I love that people ask these questions. I'm like, I don't know, let's figure this out, right? And we get a chance to figure it out together. Again, the Doppler Gang family. Yes and amen. All right, Danilo, what's going on? Nimrod's Dream. Where do I know you from? Please tell us about the Flying V's, the best one you have ever tried. Different woods on them. I found that I love the Seymour JB on them and the Alpha and Omega set. Okay, first of all, hello. Nimrod's Dream, I take it, is your band. So the deal is that judging by this guy here and the various dents in here, it's not super heavy, but I'm 90% positive this guy is mahogany. And so the thing about this guitar is it's effectively a Les Paul in a Flying V body. And originally, it had, just the two humbuckers. This is DiMarzio 36th anniversary PAF. I've got to ask them about that because it seems like a strange number, but my guess is they were waiting to do the 35th anniversary and then it got pushed back for whatever reason. So in terms of, it's not the best for clean amps, but if you roll off the tone control a little bit, a little bit more, grab the pick. I'm spending a lot of time at 8A. At the B flat. So the deal is that's that guy. In the middle we have the Virtual 2 middle model, and right now this pickup and this version of this guitar does not have a tone control. Yeah, just a little bit too much, but blended in with the bridge pickup in the number 2 position and the tone control over. Has a breath in it. Number 4 pickup selection is obviously this guy. This is the Sustainiac pickup that when I'm in the bridge, basically what happens is this is picking up the sound of the strings. This is expelling that same signal and creating, here's the fundamental. Oh, sorry, I was in B flat. So there's a little, this is how I engage the Sustainiac on that tone control. And this brings it either to the fundamental in the down position or to the octave in the up position. And that only works on the bridge pickup. So if you are in any other pickup selection and you engage it, it automatically switches the bridge. And then here's just the neck, which is the Sustainiac pickup, just functioning like a normal pickup. And it's a narrow aperture humbucking pickup. So that is this is a wide aperture humbucking pickup. Narrow aperture, hence why when it's up, it's not making any noise. And honestly, it's one of the best pickups I've ever used. My guess is B flat. You bring it down. Got lots of character in all those different shades of colors that I love. Now, that said, there we go. Hey, fancy. Figured out my foot switch. This is fine. This is the new V. Oh, come on. Don't be difficult. There we go. So, one of the things is that basically they're pretty much designed to be sister Vs. That one's got the Floyd Rose FRX on it. This one is pretty much the identical guitar, but we've put an actual Floyd on there. We actually put the one of the things that I don't like about that guitar is we've got the output jack there. And I was looking at some live photos, and the cable, because I put it behind the strap, has a tendency to dangle between, if you will, the crotch. And I was like, oh, I really hate the look of that. So as we were kind of working on this guitar, Gary Brower's my guy, we put this over here. However, as you just watched me do pretty much all my guitars, Les Pauls, the other Flying V, I use a right angle jack. And I'm not going to use a right angle jack here. But one of the things is that because of the way these jacks are made, when you plug it in here, come on, get in there, it actually sticks up a little bit, no fault of Gary's. And what happens is when you sit with it, basically it ends up tensioning on the jack itself, which is not an ideal thing to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch this plate out and use just a standard kind of flat jack, more like you would see on a Les Paul. And then we're going to be able to put that flat in there like that. So that's going to be the next mod on this guitar. That said, using the traditional jack in there like that, and plugging in here like that, and unmuting like that. There we go. This guitar has actually got a floating So in the bridge, this is a DiMarzio hum canceling PAF. And the thing about the FRX Floyd that's on there, I really miss being able to float with the bar, but it just didn't really stay in tune. And that kind of rocking, kind of Beckish. So, and then the tone controls, I was looking at this guitar one day, and traditionally it would be the trio of controls and the pickup selector. And I kind of went, wait a second. I can just put a quad of controls like on a Les Paul. Volume, tone, right? And then 5-way pickup selector. And then, so you've got this P90 deal here. This is the Satch track in the middle position, and here's just that on its own. And now that guy. Has tone control in the middle position. That is a number 2. And now if I want to, I can roll off the bridge pickup. Or I can roll off the neck pickup, or the middle. Or then there is the number 4 pickup selection right there. I'm a little out of tune, so let me just check that real quick. But the point being is that this guitar was intended to kind of complement the other one. In the neck position there, what I've got, thank you for asking, is a DiMarzio Mini Humbucker. And I really, these were, I kind of had an idea about what I was going for, and I wanted to try something a little bit different, so it was a complement to the other guitar. And I decided I didn't want to put a Sustainiac in this one, but in particular I wanted to do something different in that. Kind of buttery. Really kind of a really great sounding pickup, and if you need to, there's the tone all the way up. So in any case, it's kind of the kissing cousin to that guitar, but we were able to kind of address a couple of the little things, like the tuning thing. Again, the ability to take the bar. Sounds better with distortion, but the point being is that's that minor third on the second string. That's a lot of bar there. It's a really neat guitar. I'm still kind of figuring it out. any case, thank you for asking. The new love of my life. All right. Hope that helps. Okie dokie. That's a slick looking rig, and I know it has the power. Right on. It is a groovy little rig. Absolutely. Thank you. Mike Mong. Yes, 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 yes. Not a fan. $10 for an additional effect. Why not just get something with 200 built in? Right. So there is a little bit of I had an interesting exchange with the person who I won't mention. $10 for a new effect seemed to have really rubbed people the wrong way. So it's going to be a very interesting thing to see how that unfolds. Yes. Brent, what's going on, my man? How are you? Look at you. Nice slide tone. Nice natural. I could say I wore it for you, but that would be not true. But I am playing that for you. Hope you're doing great. I think you've just started a new semester with your flock. Congratulations. Always a pleasure, my friend. Okay. Thank you. So the strap buttons on this guitar are totally original, and that's kind of one of the cool things about this. So this guy and this guy are just the total stock locations, which is cool. We put strap locks on there. Just hit the microphone, as you probably heard. But just really like the way it sits. The other thing is that there's a conversation that I've got a new student that's going to be starting today, which I'm really excited about. I can't mention who they are, but I'm really, really excited about working with them. And they are a left leg player. And so essentially, this, where the instrument here sits, and I got a lesson that starts in about 13 minutes. So I'm going to sign off in just a moment. First of all, Digital Viper, great to see you, my man. Just ordered a new James Tyler. Awesome, congratulations. Those are beautiful guitars. Right on, my buddy Rich Rankin. He is the man there. Because I don't like where mine is on your V. First of all, hello. The deal is, all right. Let me. Hang on. Let's see here. What is your V? First of all, I affectionately call this guitar Kirk. Come here, Kirk. Yeah, Kirk's in the same place. There and there. So this is kind of funny. I humor myself. My wife gives me a hard time about it, but let's go from Kirk to James, right? Or sorry, excuse me, Dave. Won't make that mistake again. Right, so that is a slightly different location. So here's where it is on Dave, right there, and a little bit further in there. But this is also where we stole kind of the location of the jack there. And, in retrospect, if I'd been a little bit smarter, I would have remembered that when it's sitting there, you end up on the cable there. So I'm going to actually replace this one with a flat plate and also use a right angle jack. Back in the day, pretty much every right angle jack on all my cables of the plug, they always seem to break, but I'm using Rapco Horizon cables, and I've been using these cables for like 3 years now. Zero issues with the right angle jacks. And if you play Les Paul, and once we kind of make the modification on this V. So let's see here. And I take it, for you, it's a weight distribution thing, yeah? Because the neat thing is I don't recall this guitar giving me a problem here, but I will say it is in a different location. Come around there. There we go. Nope, went too far, my bad. All right, let's try that. No, that's actually pretty darn comfortable. So I want to talk a little bit about the right leg, left leg bit real quick. I hope I answered that question for you, 5150. Oh, wait. Oh, there's more people. Hang on. The boss. Great idea and value. Okay. So there is some noise. I want to do some research about it before I, quote unquote, pass judgment, because I think I love everything the Boss people do, and the idea, Digitech had a box that you could download. You could buy additional stomps that were virtual stomps, right? So the concept is actually, I don't think it's a bad idea. It just seemed to really rub people the wrong way, which is an interesting thing. Got my shipping notice on the air step. All right, so lest we forget, all you Tonex fans out there, the new piece de resistance, the cable, the other cable / USB cable, and the air step. What is it they call it? It's for Tonex. What do they call this? The AirStep TX edition. So this guy arrived 2 days ago. I have not had a chance to put together this thing, but one of the things I'm going to be doing is putting together, with this, probably 2 different Tonex rigs. I have the Tonex cab. I'm waiting for a second one to show up so I can actually put together a stereo rig for that. But one of the things I'm going to do is put together with the 3 Tonex ones and toggle between them. But that I'm going to use for the regular Tonex pedal to be able to control a whole range of things, which is going to be really, really groovy, which I'm super, super excited. So, Chris, congratulations. Lots of fun there. Albert, hello, my friend. Better late than never, and thank you for joining us. Wait a second. Who is it? So, what tone summoner is this? Who is this? Who would this be? All right. Who is CRM? Who you? And gosh darn it, let me switch back over to here real quick. As a tone summoner, did you go last night? Hold on, that's the wrong guitar. There's the right guitar right there. We'll chat next breakfast. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, there is a group of us, and I mentioned this before, Mason Marangella of Vertex Effects, a dear friend of mine, and a fellow gear nerd. Oh, come on. So note to self, I'm going to finish this concept about the Tonex, the breakfast. So one of the things that I'm going to toy with is some of the different rigs using Tonex, and I think we talked about the little mini stomp rig and using Tonex 1 as just the amplifier, but the different ways you can build stuff around that. It's kind of going in the opposite direction, but there's a MIDI 24 band graphic EQ that a guy that on the Boogie Forum that I was gonna sell it to, but he kind of evaporated the day I said this is how much it's going to be with shipping, and he's just, I haven't heard hear nor hide from him since. But it's an older product from Alesis, but it's a MIDI digital EQ, which basically means you can set presets for all sorts of different tones. And so because the main Tonex pedal speaks MIDI, the ability to build, although not around the smaller Tonex 1, but around that guy, you can build a kind of more sophisticated rig where if you want some external shaping using something as extreme as a dual 24 band EQ, that would be available. The other thing is I'm a big fan of these Boogie EQs. I'm kind of also excited. Mason and I were talking about getting back to the Tone Summit breakfast last night. Mason is kind of putting together a new board without going into any specifics because it's his business share, not mine. I can say this. He had one of the XTS GE7s. This was a conversation that we had in the car. One of the things I love about Mason is he knows a lot about a lot. And the thing is that what they've done is they've changed the EQ inside the GE7 so it better fits the EQ for guitar. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to need to check one of those out. So the neat thing is that the different tone shaping devices that are out there that can allow you to do different things around EQ, so you can take the inherent character of a device like Tonex 1 or the Tonex, and then in turn do a little additional shaping, be it for solo boost with a tone that you really like, volume boost with a little bit of tone shaping, and the different ways you can do that. Because I think most of us generally think of like, okay, I know I want it to be louder, and I know that maybe I want to pull some of the top end off, but what are some of the different ways that we can get there? And that's going to be one of the cool things about that. So awesome. Tone Summoner. What a lovely bunch of people. CRM 114. Awesome, awesome, awesome. That's great. I have HX Stomp before, Tonex 1 for drive. Okay, I have an HX Stomp before the Tonex 1 for drive, pitch, EQ, there we go, and whatever, and another Stomp after for stereo out. Love the flexibility of that setup. So, are you saying you have two HX Stomps? Or are you saying you use a different Stomp on the backside? Two HX Stomps? That's pretty crafty. And one of the other things, as much as Line 6 is getting ready to start rolling out sooner than later, this whole stadium thing, one of the conversations that's kind of an ongoing. So Chris Buck last night, I actually got a snap of his pedal board, and I knew he was going to be using some form factor of Helix, and he was using. I knew it was either going to be just the HX Stomp or HX Stomp XL, which is what he was using. And that gives you kind of the ability to have some additional controls if you're in kind of in pedal board mode of turning different stomps on or off, and just a variety of things. Yes, two stomps. I got one of, hold on a second. Yes, two stomps. I got them one at a time, far apart. I used to have an Iridium, but basically straight for a second stomp. Wow. Okay. Okay, wow, that is a rad rig, dude. I have never actually heard of anybody doing that, and I love that idea. I'm about to loan my HX Stomp to my buddy Carlos, but I'm going to have to see if I can find a second one that I can kind of add to it. Maybe I can reach out to my friends at Line 6 and say, hey, I had this guy, Shredding Finn, who gave me this great inspiration for something that he's doing. That's really crafty. All right. Hey, look, I have a lesson that starts in 2 minutes, and I want to get a chance to kind of get into lesson mode. So I'm going to bid each of you a fond adieu. I want to say thank you so much. And, first of all, thank you for hanging out with me on a Saturday. I really appreciate you spending your time. I really appreciate spending your getting a chance to answer your questions. And I really appreciate the inspiration for right now is a really, really important time in my career. Like, no more important time has ever been in my career. So, first of all the people that show up and supporting what I'm doing, I'm so thankful and so grateful. But also the content creation side, as I watched kind of Chris Buck and Mason Marangella meet last night, I realized the content creation side is an integral part of the mission that I need to be doing. So your ideas fueling that, and the ability to have a Saturday morning group of people that allow me to share those ideas with, and then share the kind of the fruit of those labors. I really appreciate that. So it's going to mean more as time goes on, and I'm going to get better at this kind of doing stuff live on the fly. So thank you for your indulgence and fun and your Doppler Gang family vibe. It means the world to me. So grateful. Thank you. The Strymon reverbs are really, really good. Awesome. Eric, always a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Mike Rand, thank you. Thank you. Oh, excellent. Thank you very much. That, coming from a Tone Summoner, that is high praise. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Chris Alexander, I did not get to your questions. Gosh darn it. We had a full house here, but I always carry over, so that is always more is good. Nick, thank you so much. Take care. All checking out. See you next time. Next session, lesson time. It'll be the same. It's next Saturday at the same time. And bring your questions. And great. Thank you again, Shredding Finn. And I'll see you all next Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks again for hanging out. Really appreciate you. Have a great weekend, and it's lesson time.